We dedicate this episode of Vintage Update to the lives of Nature Boy Buddy Landel and Cora Combs. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Vintage Update. The Brothers of Production back on the air. Shotgun Shan, Luke Force. What's going on, man? Yo, it's summer. This thing is flying by. It's already June 25th. Can you believe it?
It's crazy, buddy. It's crazy. This is what happens when you're having too much fun, I think. Life just kind of whizzes by.
Well, you want to talk about fun. You want to talk about fun in the sun. I got some summer fun coming this weekend. You know, and I know you're probably thinking in your head, he's going to go down to the beach, going to wear those short shorts. He's going to get himself an ice cream cone. Yes, this is the kind of stuff I usually do on a summer weekend, but this weekend it's going to be even more fun. I'm getting 4 little bones drilled out of, or I guess not even drilled, pulled out with a pair of pliers. They're going to put their knees on my chest. Might have a broken sternum like Bret Hart that one time we saw him in Maple Leaf Gardens. But yeah, it's wisdom teeth removal extraction weekend.
Wisdom teeth mania.
Wisdom teeth mania coming up this weekend for me. So what a great time to do it, though. Beautiful June sunny weekend.
There you go. You can lay out on the deck and moan in this fresh air. That'll be fine.
Right. And if there is any shows that broadcast over the weekend, which right now it looks like there's going to be, Sean Cunningham has reached out to me. He is our resident historian, of course. Huge fan, especially of the Southern wrestling, the Carolinas, Memphis, Mid-South, all that stuff. That's Sean Cunningham's wheelhouse. And so he really did want to come on and share a few thoughts about Nature Boy Buddy Landel, who did pass away. I'll just say this, again, it's more something in adulthood that I've watched him more than growing up as a kid, because I didn't get a lot of the places he was at, Mid-South, all the stuff he did with Junkyard Dog, Butch Reed, all that. Obviously didn't see that at the time. The stuff in the Carolinas with Ric Flair, when he was the counterfeit Ric Flair, and was managed by J.J. Dillon, and it was this really huge angle that kind of fizzled out. The one thing that, really seems to be coming to light since, the news of his passing a couple days ago is that this is a guy, and I can back this up from what I've seen, a guy with tremendous talent, a fantastic worker, a word that these days gets thrown around way too much. I think people have really confused athleticism with being a worker. Worker means, the real definition of that means to work the people. And Dusty Rhodes, who we can talk about here in a few minutes. Shan, you haven't had a chance to come on the show since his passing, but another guy you sort of categorize in that not the best athlete necessarily in the world, but as a worker in the traditional sense, knew how to control the audience. But yeah, Buddy Landel, all the talent in the world, and really unfortunately, drugs really got in the way of him ever having the career that he probably should have had, considering his talent level and how good he was at such a young age. And also, Sean's going to come on and talk about Cora Combs, who's a very, very important figure in women's wrestling. When you talk about that Billy Wolf golden age of wrestling, she's one of those names that's definitely up there in terms of the most important. So he's going to come on and talk about her as well. So rest in peace to those two legendary figures in the wrestling business. You haven't been on for a few weeks. How do you feel that the American Dream Dusty Rhodes is being remembered right now and will be remembered going forward after his passing?
Well, I think it's one of those situations where you take someone for granted when they're around, and once they're gone, you have to take stock of them, not just the more focal parts of their lives, such as Dusty in the ring and when he was at his peak, but really what he's contributed overall. And I think now you can look back and go, yeah, Dusty was influencing so many people and bringing so much out of people that might not have come to the surface hadn't it been for Dusty's mentoring. As so many people have come forward to say, Dusty saw something in me, or Dusty did this. I think growing up, my first exposure to Dusty Rhodes was during his laughable WWE run when they were just, trying to embarrass him for the most part. So I didn't really understand what the big deal was till later when I went back and watched some of Dusty's bigger matches. And certainly, you couldn't find another guy of his size or his physicality that could do what he could do as far as, just he was a fast moving man.
Cardio.
Yeah. He could go, buddy, and he could, and he didn't rely on his size either. I mean, he was a thinker. Dusty was a thinker, and you just don't get a lot of those guys that are thinking outside of the box or kind of projecting even a higher level of their talent than what you were aware of going in. So, I mean, I look back now so fondly on Dusty Rhodes, and I even in his latter years, I thought, he's done a lot. But when people are coming forward to say how he influenced their careers, I think we're really seeing how Dusty influenced the business. And I would have to say how he will influence it going forward after his death, because I know we talked a little bit about this on the weekend, about the fact that now Cody and Dustin, may move into different roles in their careers. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dustin move into developmental and do some of what Dusty was doing. And I would really like to see Cody given the chance to have a more serious career for once. The guy, I mean, I've been a Cody Rhodes fan since the early days, and I've always felt that no matter what he was given, he always found a way to make it work. There's not a lot of guys that can do that, and I hope WWE will maybe take this opportunity to look at Cody Rhodes and say, what can we do with Cody that we haven't done already? Because I'd love to see his potential fulfilled.
Who on earth could you possibly get to fill the shoes of Dusty Rhodes in that role in NXT? Yeah. This is it's such a short list of guys that have the wealth of knowledge. And the interesting thing about Dusty, and I think when you see a guy like CM Punk write a lengthy thing about it, I mean, he certainly is not going to do that just because he thinks it's what he should do. Him and Dusty clearly had a very, very close relationship, and Dusty had taken him on sort of as one of his, he always liked the misfit toys. He always liked the ones that were a little bit difficult, didn't fit into the system, because bottom line is Dusty didn't fit into the system. Dusty was a rebel in his time. And the fact that CM Punk, that was the one that really sort of took me by surprise, that he really went as far as he did with that little piece that he wrote about Dusty Rhodes. It's really interesting because, again, you talk about Dustin maybe moving into developmental. Cody, that is a guy that should be one of your top baby faces. And babyface in the old traditional, that we're talking about all these old timers and stuff like that. This is an old time traditional babyface that can get sympathy. He's got it. And I know he has an acting background, even before he got into pro wrestling anyway. He did go to acting school, and they are totally underutilizing him in the right role. The roles that they've been giving him, sure, some of it's been hit and miss, some of it's been kind of entertaining. He hasn't done the role that's right for him yet, though. The role that's right for him is as the sympathetic top babyface character. And, a good-looking guy, athletic guy, can go in the ring and can talk. And, I was definitely, and I think everybody that is, hearing this show right now and read the eulogy, I mean, everybody was moved by what he wrote. And him and Dusty were extremely, extremely close. And as much as you're going to have people in one school that say, you're capitalizing on Dusty's death by sort of using it to get sympathy on Cody, that's the wrestling business in a lot of sense, because it's a real thing. You can't just ignore it. To me, a guy like Dusty dying and the fact that his son is an active wrestler who has all this potential, you can't just ignore it because, we might be capitalizing on Dusty's death. Don't you think?
Oh, I totally agree with you, but I even would go further to say it would be more of a tribute to Dusty to take.
That's right.
Yeah, to take his son and say, let's give him the opportunity to show everything that he has. Because, I mean, that's the thing about Cody. It's good when you've got a guy and you look at him and you go, he hasn't given us everything he's got yet. That's kind of exciting. What's not as exciting is when you can say that about someone and they're not ever going to get the opportunity to show it. That's a waste. So let's really hope that that this maybe does springboard Cody into the opportunity to show more, even just as a tribute to Dusty. I would love to see that. I've been a Cody fan forever.
Oh, and the idea, I'm just saying, there's going to be people that are going to say, it's opportunistic to all of a sudden push Cody and to have him in his promo. Because I would be fully, endorsing the idea of him saying, this is for you, Pops. I'm sorry that, I've been squandering my talent, and I know everything you always told me. You always told me I was the best. I needed to believe in myself, all that. I'm sorry I didn't do that when you were here, but I'm going to do it now. And again, Dusty loved the business. If anyone hasn't figured that out by now with all the people that have come forward and talked about it, it's really amazing when you think about the fact that the WWF and the whole golden age of the rock and wrestling and the Hulk Hogan explosion and Roddy Piper and all that stuff. Hulk Hogan was a Dusty Rhodes mark. He was the guy that was paying his money to sit front row in the Garden and watch Dusty Rhodes. That was his guy in terms of his personality. You know, Superstar and Dusty, those were his guys. You look at Ric Flair, and I think a lot of people just kind of in their minds think that those two started at the same time, but they didn't. Ric Flair started after Dusty Rhodes, and he wanted to call himself Ricky Rhodes because he was this chubby little blonde kid. And that was who he was idolizing, and that's who he was trying to get his stuff from. So you think about Flair and Hogan both being influenced so heavily by this guy. I mean, you could really say Dusty, without even being there, was a big part of the whole rock and roll wrestling era even happening. You look at the change. When you look at Dusty Rhodes, when he came around in the late 70s, like he came around before that, but I mean the whole American Dream character and everything he was doing in the 70s, you could really say that was the inspiration for what Vince did, you know, in the mid-80s. So it's pretty amazing. And then you look at it now and say, well, the guys now are still so influenced by him in a different way, you know, because they've been working with him hands-on. But, I mean, a really big void that's going to have to be filled there with Dusty, and you've just lost this huge wealth of knowledge that you can't just create that. I mean, Paul Heyman is a guy, another Dusty protege right there, Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's a guy you could say maybe could go into that role and do a job comparable to what Dusty did, but he's not going to probably want to move down to Florida.
And I have a feeling that Heyman isn't going to be as an accessible a personality as Dusty was.
He's a different kind, you know.
He's a different kind of guy, and I love that about him. But I'm just saying, I'm not sure you can fill the void, no matter who you put in there.
Again, I see Heyman just because of the similar, and I guess this is something that he kind of got from, you know, Dusty. Dusty trained Paul Heyman in booking. I mean, everybody's seen Paul Heyman's DVD by now. They know that he got into booking wrestling by basically crashing a booking meeting. And then when being called out into the hallway by Dusty, you know, saying, I just want to learn from the master. And of course, that's going to win Dusty over. So, you know, he learned how to book from Dusty. And just that similarity in the sense of Paul always wants to bring the best out of everybody. Guys that maybe everyone else on the roster is looking past, guys that WWE fired or guys that WCW fired, ECW. Paul was always the guy that's like, well, I want to take him and I want to build him up and I want to build his confidence up. And I want, you know, it's that similar Dusty sort of philosophy. So I guess that's why I sort of brought him up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they're certainly within the same vein. You know, they hold very similar influence. I would love to see Paul move into developmental if he could, but again, I don't think he'd want to commit to that amount of time. I wouldn't think.
Surprised by the amount of mainstream coverage, Shan, or am I even foolish for asking it? It's Dusty Rhodes.
I don't tend to think of mainstream coverage as paying that much attention to historical figures. They're more about what's going on in the moment. But yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I was glad that he got the attention that he did. But
yeah, I mean, he was an interesting guy too. I mean, he would have like Blondie, you know, Debbie Harry coming to the Garden to see him. You know, being as a friend, you know, he was friends with Willie Nelson and all these guys outside of wrestling. And Dusty, you know, if you ever were to go through his contacts in his phone or in his address book, I think people would be pretty blown away by the people that Dusty had, you know, just a phone call away. So anyway, moving along, Shan. WWE land. Where do we start there? Did you happen to see TLC?
TLC mean Money in the Bank?
Sure.
Money in the Bank.
Did you see TLC? No, because it got canceled, didn't it? They don't even do that pay-per-view anymore.
I don't think so. I don't know, man. I can't keep track. They're having them every 2 weeks now. I don't know what day it is. Money in the Bank, though, yeah. I mean, let's just do a quick recap on that because I haven't spoken to you since then. And I mean, there were some moments in that show that I think were significant. Cena Owens 2, I think, lived up to all the hype of Cena Owens 1. And certainly sets the table for Cena Owens 3. I don't know if this is going to be a trilogy or if they're going to keep it going. But those two guys, I think, proved in the ring that it wasn't a fluke the first time around. Still tons and tons of excitement, guys pulling out stuff you haven't seen before. And it's not just that Kevin Owens is wowing me and everybody else in the ring, but I'm loving John Cena, and I never thought it would happen. I think that guy's awesome. And I'm really seeing how much he really means to the business right now, whereas before I just resented having to take him as champion all the time. My God, he's putting Owens over huge.
I can't 100%. I mean, I'm gonna give you both sides of the coin, Shane, just like I always do. But yes, as far as that match goes, another great one. You know, on paper, or if you were to tell me before that Owens this time is gonna lose 2 weeks later, I would say they're panicking. I would say, what the fuck? But you know what? They let him get his heat back at the end, and that's really what is important. Wins and losses aren't important, folks, necessarily, as long as a heel that is hot is able to get his heat back at the end. And this was the right way of doing that. Again, that's not always going to be the case, but this way it was done well, and I didn't think at the end of that Kevin Owens, felt like he'd been, taken down a peg.
Yeah, I agree with you. He looked just as strong at the end as he did going in. What did you think of Sheamus winning the briefcase? I mean, I think everyone was expecting it was going to be Roman Reigns, and to be perfectly honest, as much as I protested Reigns being in the main event at WrestleMania, I wouldn't have minded if Reigns won at the Money in the Bank, simply because there weren't that many other top guys going in. What do you think of Sheamus having that briefcase? Is it as significant as it would have been if someone else had gotten it?
Not for me, just because, I like Sheamus. I do. I think he's good. I like his new look as much as everybody, chants "you look ridiculous" or whatever they chant. I guess they you look. What do they say? You look awful.
You look stupid.
You look stupid. Yeah.
You look ridiculous.
Too many syllables.
Too many syllables, man.
So I mean, I love the new music.
Yeah.
This is all cool with me. With that said, it was flat.
Yeah.
And there are times, and he's been fucking hurting guys left and right. So I don't know about the idea of rewarding him, for that by giving him the Money in the Bank. And I don't think he's a good enough promo to carry this angle. Because usually with the Money in the Bank, it's something that's going to go on for quite some time, and the guy's you kind of got to be a promo guy. And am I wrong about that? I know you're a Sheamus fan. Am I really downplaying his talking ability? I've never really been all that amazed by him.
I'm not a huge Sheamus fan, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, I thought you were.
Like him. No, I like him. I like him much better now that he's a heel. I think we've been teased with Sheamus for too long, him never really amounting to that much or having sort of uneventful title reigns in minor titles or whatever he's done. That I tend not to think of him as a big deal anymore, even with the mohawk and the new hair and everything. He's fine in the ring, but as you said, he seems to be getting a little bit reckless. And when your finisher is kicking the guy in the face, I'm not sure that's really a good combination. I had the same feeling. I'm like, I kept thinking, I hope he cashes in soon because I don't really want to follow this for very long. And I don't think that's really the feeling you should be coming away from Money in the Bank with.
And then just think about that, what you just said. You hope he cashes in soon. I mean, is Sheamus going to be the world champion? Where does Sheamus as world champion factor into everything that seems to be building right now?
Well, I guess, my thought is that he may be a guy that doesn't get the championship.
Yeah.
And that's fine by me. Because I think you need to do that every once in a while, or else it doesn't mean as much. If Brock gets this title from Rollins, which may happen, which may not happen, I can see Sheamus cashing in on Brock and losing. So, and it builds Brock up even more.
I mean, everybody had Roman Reigns, so I do believe it was supposed to be Roman Reigns. And Vince at the last minute wanted to prove he's smarter than everybody else, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's not the right decision. That's the kind of booking I hate, not just Vince McMahon, Vince Russo, anybody that has sort of gotten obsessed with that kind of booking of nobody will see it coming. Because sometimes nobody sees it coming because it's the worst possible choice.
You know what, too? I'm really opposed to the idea that everything has to be a surprise.
Me too.
Surprise me with putting on a really good show. That's the surprise I want to be surprised with. I don't necessarily want you to pick somebody that doesn't make sense to be the winner in this match or that match. Surprise me by putting out a quality product that amazes me, and that's the surprise I like.
Imagine Rocky IV, right? We always got to go back to Rocky references. Rocky IV was the Russian against Apollo, right?
Yeah.
That match happened, right? And Apollo dies in the ring.
Yes.
Imagine Apollo didn't die in the ring. And instead of the Russian beating Apollo, Apollo won. And the Russian just sort of disappeared. And you didn't see him again for the rest of the movie. And then they just did Apollo and Rocky at the end. It was just kind of a babyface match.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff Vince does with his booking. There's an obvious story that needs to be told, and he just says, too predictable. Not all the time. Sometimes he's sticks to his vision. Not these days. And not with Roman Reigns. There was one great match on that show. And it was Kevin Owens and John Cena.
I agree.
Now, going forward after that show, they've done some very strange things. Not in a bad way. Not even in a bad way, just in a... Well, pretty bad, actually. Bad in a humorous way, though. Not the kind of bad stuff that gets me angry. The kind of bad stuff that gets me on a podcast with my brother kind of laughing and joking about it. And that, of course, being the Machine Gun Kelly stuff. It was great, okay? It was excellent. What was not excellent was the whole planning, I guess, of this whole thing, and the way that Machine Gun Kelly turned out to be like the worst celebrity you could have ever worked with in terms of putting it over. I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, this guy is being positioned as a babyface friend of John Cena, right? Am I correct on that?
I think so, yeah.
They've made it pretty clear that John Cena and him have a relationship, which they do. I don't think it's a intimate relationship, but they do have a relationship of some kind. And Kevin Owens comes out there, and everything he did was awesome.
Well, I think anytime you open up the door to sort of an independent entity like that, somebody who's not part of the business, I think you got to have everything figured out ahead of time and not give them any opportunity to screw it up. It sounds like no one really talked through this with Machine Gun Kelly as far as what he was supposed to do afterwards.
Anyway, long story short, Machine Gun Kelly sucks, but I thought that was an awesome moment in history, an awesome moment for WWE television to see that. And he got powerbombed off the stage by Kevin Owens. That's great. Machine Gun Kelly came off so unlikable. And then you're trying to get sympathy on him as the babyface buddy of John Cena, who John Cena, I think, on Raw this week called a 90-pound musician. Does he look 90 pounds to you, Shanna? Is that really the weight of Machine Gun Kelly? Do you know? Do you have any inside info?
I don't know, man.
Like John Cena, he's trying to get sympathy on this guy, and he's like, yeah, you beat up on a 90-pound musician.
I'm not sure putting over a grown man as a 90-pound. That's probably the way to go. But, I get what he was saying. Machine Gun Kelly does look like Spaghetti Man. He's pretty skinny. So I don't know if that's going to garner any sympathy for him or not. But, yeah, I get what you're saying.
It was just bizarre. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
It was also bizarre this week on Raw when John Cena said to Kevin Owens that the fans were indifferent to him. I'm just like, have you been listening to, the audience? But anyway, nonetheless, it's been really good. I like the angle. I like the fact that, he did that with Machine Gun Kelly. So now they're 1-1. What do you think is going to be coming up now for this next match? How are we going to go about booking this match moving forward? NXT, WWE. What's going on with Kevin Owens? He seems super duper hot, but we've seen this in the past, and we've seen them put the brakes on.
Well, okay, now, is this next one for the U.S. title? I can't even remember now.
I can't remember if it is officially, but I mean, clearly that's where they're going with it. They've been talking about it on TV. I don't see any way. I think John Cena this week actually, he said that he would do it.
Well, then my feeling is either Owens wins the U.S. title and leaves NXT at Battleground, or it's a non-finish of some kind that's going to demand a final match, in which case Owens will win that one. I firmly believe that the plan right now is to bring Kevin Owens to the main roster, and the only way to really do that and make it look good is to move him up with a new title. I mean, it does leave Samoa Joe in the lurch, and that doesn't seem to be the plan, so I don't know, but that's my feeling. I don't think John Cena is going over him again. I don't think that they would have wasted the time and the effort they've put into Kevin Owens if that was what they were going to do. And I don't think Cena needs it anyway.
It's not like it's a live weekly show or anything. They put them all in the can. So you just have to be in Florida for those tapings. But yeah, with Kevin Owens right now, he's such an interesting character. He's such a great personality. Some of his best stuff is actually the sit-downs with Michael Cole. Have you seen any of these?
I have.
That he's done with Kevin Owens?
He's amazing, yeah. Yeah, he does a great job. He's so natural, and he'll just throw out lines that would mean nothing coming from someone else, but there's so much attitude behind them. He just seems very genuine. He sells, he projects that level of authenticity that I really enjoy.
And yes, John Cena has done a fantastic job, like you say. He's still a drama queen.
Yeah.
If you listen to his promos, the guy is such a gosh darn drama queen. It's not even funny, and I can understand why Kevin Owens is giving him such a hard time. But Other things going on. Brock Lesnar has returned to the company now. He's back for this next run. He will be facing Seth Rollins at Battleground. I didn't necessarily anticipate that match coming before SummerSlam, but they're going to go that way. What have you thought of Brock's return so far? And going into Battleground, what's going on here? How do we get around this one?
That's what I'm wondering. Because if they're still planning on doing Seth and Triple H at SummerSlam, well, this is a good time for Seth to drop the belt, through no fault of his own, hopefully, and have Brock go over and have Brock. I don't know who Brock fights at SummerSlam, but I guess there's quite a lot of guys out there you could put in that role. I guess we need to ask Jamie Noble what he thinks about Brock Lesnar's return, since Lesnar broke 3 of his ribs on Monday night, or at least that's what we're reading now, and it seems legit. So Lesnar, in his usual over-enthusiastic way, is making waves in WWE since coming back. I don't know what they do with Rollins. I mean, I'd love to see Rollins retain in some way, but you have so few Brock dates booked. I think you got to make the most of them, and I think Brock needs to go over, unless it's to set up a better match for him at SummerSlam against somebody that interferes. But God, I don't know who it would be. I certainly don't want to see him and Kane. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think happens? Is this the?
Well, first of all, let me just ask you one more question. Okay, so we're going to assume that this is still the plan: Seth and Triple H at SummerSlam, and what will be the outcome, and where will Seth be going? From there. That's sort of what I'm curious about right now. I'm guessing babyface turn is on its way, no matter what.
I would think so. I think it's time for Seth to turn, and I would think that. There'll be some fallout from Seth losing the title or something like that that'll lead to him and Triple H coming to blows. I mean, I would like to see Seth back as a face. He's proven himself as a heel, but it wasn't really the right kind of heel, and I think he has a lot more going for him as a face, especially as far as his style goes.
So is it just as simple, for a storyline, is it just as simple as him continuing with this, I don't need help, and I can do it on my own and all this stuff, and they're going to resent him for doing that, for thinking he's too big for his bridges? Is that like a pretty natural storyline at this point?
I would think that would be the natural way to go, that he refused their help and ended up losing, particularly against Lesnar, where you should know better. But then again, you put the belt back on Lesnar, you got that same problem again with the champion that can't defend very often. So I don't know what they do, but it is going to be interesting.
It's a good opponent, though, I will say, if the idea is we need to turn Seth babyface, because the worst thing that can happen is that they do it in a way that makes Seth look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And, the worst thing you can do to a babyface is make him look stupid, make him look like an idiot. And that's all that I'm praying for coming out of the whole Seth being thrown out of the Authority or refusing to be in the Authority or whatever, is that he comes out looking like better than I'm just a loser that's getting picked on and I was just getting, treated like crap for a whole bunch of time, and now they're kicking me to the curb, and now I'm just, a nobody.
Exactly.
What I want to see with him in the match with Lesnar, and that's where I do think that is the perfect opponent. We were talking, earlier in the show about sympathy, and Cody Rhodes being a guy that his natural role to me is a baby face, because he's so good looking, a good baby face that you can get sympathy on. And if you watch Cody Rhodes, he's really good at that when he is a face, and he's not a face very often, but he's really good at having that sort of thing that makes he looks like he's crying, sort of when he's selling.
Yeah.
And you could do the same thing with Seth and Brock. You could have it get to a point, even though Brock is the baby face, where Seth takes such a goddamn beating in that match that you turn him babyface because the crowd is like, oh, we feel sorry for this guy. And hey, this guy's tough. He's not giving up. He's coming back. There is a way naturally, organically, to turn Seth babyface coming out of this match at Battleground.
Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed that that's what they're going to do, because I think that makes for a good story. And look, if I can interject one thing, and I wouldn't normally do this, if we watched Raw on Monday night, there was one moment on that rather bland show that stood out to me, and it's just because I'm a Ryback fan. But what did you think about that big splash off the top rope for the big guy? The big guy.
I think that was a huge spot in 1977.
Yeah, dude, for a guy of his size, I was so shocked. I mean, I love Ryback because despite the limitations that are put on him, he's always trying to do something different. I love that moment. I marked out for that. I was like, yes. I've never seen Ryback go to the top, I don't think, ever.
I just think it's awesome that, a big splash was enough to pop Shotgun Shan.
You got it, buddy. On that show, that was enough. I didn't have an awful lot of...
And he had a big cushion to land on, too, may I say.
We should get Mark Henry to change his name to the Big Cushion. The Big Cushion, Mark Henry.
The New Day lost their titles at TLC.
Yeah, come on.
What have you thought of the way that things have played off since then?
I would hope that that this is temporary and that they haven't abandoned New Day, because New Day was finally getting over as an interesting, fun heel team. I really enjoyed watching them, and they were really getting into it. I'd hate to see the legs taken out of those three guys again. All three of them have kind of had so many stops and starts in their careers. It's brutal.
New Day really did feel on fire. Oh,
yeah.
Coming up here at the Sumo Hall show, Kofi Kingston taking on Brock Lesnar. What do you think about the announcement of that match? Is that going to be a quick squash, or do you think they can do something fun there for the people in Japan?
I think they'll do something I think you don't pay for Brock Lesnar to give him a squash at a high-profile show. It'll be a match. I think all of New Day will come in and interfere, and it'll be 3-on-1 for a while, and I think Brock will earn his money that night. I certainly hope so. Kofi's such a capable wrestler and such an interesting, charismatic guy. Let's give him the opportunity to do something.
I guess Brock really wanted to go there anyway to see Masa Saito because he is sick right now.
Yeah.
And so they're using this tour as a way to get Brock over there, and Brock's going to get to see Masa Saito. And so it's kind of an interesting backstory there with Brock, and that's why he's over in Japan. First time being back, I would assume, since the whole debacle with New Japan, where he held the belt captive for many months when they couldn't continue to pay him. And that was actually the exodus of Antonio Inoki. He was looked at so poorly for that deal that he basically had to sell off his shares of New Japan and move on to do other things because there was such a stink on Inoki for the way that deal went down. So I don't think Brock's been back since that whole thing went down. So that's kind of interesting. But that should be a really fun show. Like, you look at the Kevin Owens Finn Balor match, and
oh yeah,
I mean, up and down the card, there's some fun stuff on there. Kenta will be there doing something, not wrestling, but he will be there in some capacity. I've heard Y2J will also be there. So they're bringing in a lot of the guys that have the history in Japan, which I think is very smart.
Good for them. I can't wait to watch it when once it goes up on the network and I get a chance to track it down.
Now,
it should be a good show.
We're going to wrap this show up here in just a minute or two.
Yeah.
Before we do, Ring of Honor, have you now seen all 4 of the tapings?
I've watched all 4
of the shows that we went to.
It was such a thrill to see those two main events, Nakamura versus Strong and Chaos versus
featuring Ernest Matthews.
Featuring Ernest Matthews. You're right. I was loving watching the crowd trying to pick us out there, and I did see all 3 of us, but Ernie got his moment in the sun. At the time when we were at the show, I thought that the Nakamura match and the Bullet Club matches were on par. Watching it again, I do think that the actual main event of Bullet Club versus Chaos was slightly better, but it's not because there was anything wrong with the Nakamura match. It was awesome. But I would say that the Bullet Club and Chaos match was a 5.5 star match. It was outrageous.
Yeah, you also got 6 guys there. Every one of them is just incredible. So really enjoyed watching those tapings, and it has not aired, or I guess by now it will have aired on Destination America, the final episode there, so that's pretty awesome. Best in the World, I know you did see Best in the World. You saw the main event. What did you think?
I thought the show was really good all the way around, as most Ring of Honor shows tend to be. I really respect the product that they put out. They don't have a lot of money for production, but they put it where it belongs, and this was no different. I thought that the main event was amazing. Jay Lethal, I can't give him enough props for putting on such a great match, and I think he's going to be a great champion. They can build a lot around him because he's such a great talker, such an exciting, dynamic competitor, and just a great personality all the way around. But I'll give Jay Briscoe the thumbs up too, because he put on a great match. And for those of you that haven't watched it yet, I won't break down the whole card because it was quite a long card and every match was pretty solid. But there was a great spot in the opening match where Donovan Dijak basically just like tossing a javelin throws Mark Briscoe out of the ring and straight into the mats. I don't think he landed on his head, but he certainly landed on his face, to the extent that there was still a big dent in the mats 5 minutes later after he'd gotten up. Great, crazy spot. I took my breath away.
Yeah, Mark is absolutely out of his mind. He's out of his mind. Sussex County chicken.
I love Mark Briscoe. Man, what an entertaining, fun guy. I mean, there aren't a lot of characters like that in wrestling anymore, where they're just kind of a fun character that isn't stupid. But he's just kind of a fun, wild character. You can't help but smile when you watch him wrestle. So
That's just it, though. He's so entertaining, he needs to realize he doesn't need to put his life in danger.
Yeah,
that's all. And he does that a lot. But that's what makes him Mark Briscoe. So what can you do?
But good show, and really, I have to applaud Jay Lethal going forward. I think it was the right move.
Mm-hmm. And again, nobody can sell, or not even sell. Nobody can get you a free brace better than Jay Lethal. The Help Alert hotline. You call now. Yeah, I mean, he's great. He can sell anything. You can put him out there. If you're doing more media now, the guy's just great. Like, not just the character, but the guy himself. You can put him out there and he can win people over. Very charming, very well spoken. Doesn't take himself too seriously. So he's a great ambassador for the company, I would say. Okay. Not to say Jay Briscoe isn't, but when you look at those two guys, and definitely Jay Lethal might be a little more accessible to the mainstream media. Although I don't think Ring of Honor is necessarily going for that. So yeah, that's that. Before we get out of here too, I just wanted to quickly talk about the New Japan scene, because we haven't really mentioned much about that on this show, and we tend to like to get into that a little bit anyways on every show. Yeah. Right now we're kind of in a bit of a downtime because the Super Junior tournament's over, which, again, crazy finals, absolutely crazy. I still got to give it to Kota Ibushi and Nakamura for match of the year so far at Wrestle Kingdom, but man, that Kushida and O'Reilly match is just one rung below it, and it was absolutely incredible. Kushida really just turned into just one of my favorite wrestlers in one night sort of thing with that match, and O'Reilly too. Both of them are just absolutely incredible. But we're sort of the downtime after the Super Junior tournament, and we got Dominion coming up here pretty soon. I'll just quickly go over the card for Dominion. A stacked show. This is like the biggest show since Wrestle Kingdom. You got in the main event AJ Styles taking on Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight title match. Seeing those two guys, I mean, that was one of the highlights for that taping for me, was just when those two guys had a few minutes in that tag match just to kind of go over stuff. And it wasn't super choreographed or anything. They were just feeling each other out, doing some of their stuff that, they know each other pretty well by now. Seeing those two, it was like you really felt like, man, this is like seeing like Flair and Steamboat in their primes or somebody like that. Two guys, Sean and Brett. It's these two guys that just have this unbelievable chemistry, and you're seeing them in their primes right before your eyes. So, I mean, seeing those two, I already enjoyed their matches before. After seeing those two get to mix it up a little bit live, now I'm really, really hyped for this main event. AJ and Okada. I anticipate AJ winning that match, again, with the plans that are laid out here, which I'll talk about in a minute. IWGP Intercontinental Championship rematch, Hiroki Goto versus Shinsuke Nakamura. I don't think Nakamura is winning this belt back. Again, plans laid out. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But I would assume this is another clean win for Goto. And then it's time to build up Nakamura. That's basically the way they're going to go with this, I think, is that Goto's going to get another strong title defense against the former champion. And then from there, we're going to start building up Nakamura during the summer. IWGP Tag Title match, Mike Bennett, Matt Taven versus Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson. I used to clown on this match. I used to say all kinds of horrible things about this match. After seeing it live, a bit of a different perspective. No complaints. It's another match on the card. Not one of the ones I'm most excited about, but I think it'll be perfectly solid. Never open weight title match. Another rematch here. Togi Makabe versus one of the dapper wrestlers, I think, in the game right now. And if you follow Shinsuke Nakamura on Facebook like I do and like Shotgun Shan does, or if you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, he's all over this social media stuff. He's always taking pictures of Ishii wearing his, dapper silk shirts and all that stuff. So Ishii versus Togi Makabe. I know, Shan, anytime these two guys get to mix it up, you always call it King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. It's a thrill to watch these two. It's just carnage unleashed. They don't hold back anything. It's very special.
Yeah, so they're going to be mixing it up again, so that's always a fun one. Don't really know what's going on with either guy, though. I don't really know what the long-term plan is for Ishii. I think there's a lot more he can do. He's a guy that I think should be holding that IC title sooner than later. So maybe that will be the plan eventually. But yeah, I mean, Makabe, it's the hard-ass title, so I guess these two guys just sort of having rematches for it is fine for now, and it's always a good match. IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match, Kenny Omega versus the winner of the Best of the Super Juniors 2015, Kushida. We love Omega. We love Kushida. We love Juniors. We love New Japan. Is there any way this could possibly go wrong?
I don't think so. Except if I have to look at Kenny's hair for too long, I'll have to look away. But other than that, I'm totally into this match.
Yeah, and just before I continue, I just wanted to say, there's some weird stuff going on with your boy Alex Shelley. You gotta get a hold of him, you gotta talk to him, you gotta see what's going on with Alex, because all these cryptic tweets and stuff like that, sort of leading people to believe that he's leaving New Japan, retiring. Some weird stuff going on with Alex, but well, you know, when Kushida won the Best of the Super Juniors, I thought it was awesome that he went on there and he wrote just probably like 20 tweets about Kushida, sort of from the beginning of meeting him until now. Really, really putting Kushida over, and really just, you could tell those guys are so close. They're such brothers, and you know, it goes beyond just tag partners and working friends or anything like that. Those two are brothers. So again, I don't know what's going on with Alex Shan, but we'll hope for the best. Maybe he's just trying to scare guys like you and me so that we'll care more when he comes back, you know?
Well,
I don't know.
I'll be caring anyway.
IWGP Junior Tag Team title match. The Young Bucks versus Red Dragon versus Roppongi Vice. I know we've seen it before. It's always good. Again, if this is just another match on the card, it's something that's going to be really fun to watch, at least. So again, I can see how some people might look at these matches and say, okay, there's not a lot of fresh stuff here. With that said, I mean, it's still a stacked show with all good matches. Mascara Dorada, Nakanishi, Funky Weapon Taguchi, Sho Tanaka, and Nagata versus Tenzan, Kojima, Jushin Thunder Liger, The Man, and Tiger Mask and Komatsu. So again, that'll probably be the opener. And the other Bullet Club members, I'm thinking it's Cody Hall, maybe Yujiro, taking on Naito and Hanma, I believe will be that match. It doesn't say here on this what Bullet Club members it'll be. Shibata versus Sakuraba. Fucking hell. That may be the match I'm most excited about. Shibata versus Sakuraba. That is going to be a barn burner. And Tanahashi finally getting the singles match. Think of how long this angle's gone on, Shan. Finally getting his singles match with Toru Yano. We're finally going to see the payoff. And I'm assuming that Tanahashi just goes in there and murders him. And it's going to be 5 minutes and high fly flow and another high fly flow and another high fly flow. And that's it. But I think, you know, they've really got the most out of this, and you know, Tanahashi's been able to heal his body up and do some different kind of style of wrestling that isn't as taxing. But I mean, we were talking about the Toru Yano stuff from the New Japan Cup. That was ages ago, and this story is just now having the big blow off. So, a great card on paper. The G1 Climax. We did talk about, you know, Michael Elgin really wanting to get into New Japan. And we felt kind of bad when we saw the match he had with Gato, which, by the way, on TV did not come off as a bad match or anything like that.
I think the reason it felt like a bad match to us is that we were exhausted. That was at about the 4-hour mark for us,
mm-hmm.
And we'd already.
And the crowd was real rough on it.
Yeah.
But they turned that down on the audio. But I mean, it was for what it was. The sort of the come down between, you know, the Nakamura and the Bullet Club match. Perfectly fine wrestling match. I was kind of amazed watching. I was like, there's nothing wrong with this. But anyway, Michael Elgin, we all know his dreams to get into New Japan. And we had thought maybe that might have screwed it up, that match, because he didn't look very good in that match. But you know what? It's New Japan. Everything's long term. Guess what? He was already in the G1. So it didn't even matter what happened. They'd already planned on putting him in the G1 even before the tour. So Michael Elgin will be the one Ring of Honor representative in the G1 this year. Oh, God, this tournament, which starts the end of next month. And I think it's just about a month right now, actually. And it's going to be a whole month of the best wrestling matches you've ever seen in your entire life. It's like a 30-day WrestleMania, folks. These guys go out there and they work their hardest of the entire year. And Kazuchika Okada is in it. AJ Styles, Haruki Goto, Togi Makabe, Tenzan.
Why?
But okay. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojima. I don't mind Kojima being in there, but not Tenzan. Naito, our boy Naito will be in it again this year. Katsuyori Shibata will be in it. Shinsuke Nakamura, Toru Yano, Tomohiro Ishii, Yujiro Takahashi, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, Bad Luck Fale, Michael Elgin, Kota Ibushi, who missed last year's G1 due to concussion issues. He's now going to be in this year, so that always puts the work rate up. Whenever Ibushi's in there, there's always going to be a good match anytime he's in any match in the tournament. And finally, Tomoyoki Hanma. Folks, this is going to be a really interesting time to be a wrestling fan because we've never had this access to New Japan like we do right now with New Japan World. So, I mean, for the G1 season, God, there's just going to be so much to talk about. I'm going to do my very best to get on here, even if it's just for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and try to recap as many shows as possible. I might have to wedge, 2 into 1 for, certain days, but I'm going to do my best to keep everybody up to date with the G1 this year. I know it can be kind of overwhelming for a lot of people, and then the winner will go on to face the IWGP Heavyweight Champion at Wrestle Kingdom 10 in January. So there's going to be a lot of shows, a lot to keep up with, but just look at it the same way you look at a Netflix series that you're watching or anything like that. You don't need to be caught up on this thing until January. It'll still be relevant come January. So you can watch the entire G1. You can do, however way you want. You want to do like me and get up early and drink your coffee and watch it live every day as much as you can. Great. But if not, just have patience, but you're going to see a hell of a lot of good wrestling. And Shotgun Shan, thank you very much for being here. The summer, once I get on the other side of this wisdom tooth extraction, it's all G1 from there. It's all Dominion and G1 from there, baby.
Who are you picking for G1?
Talk has been Nakamura wins the G1 this year. Last year, it came down to Okada and Nakamura, 2 Chaos members in the finals. They had an epic match. Okada won. He went on to fight Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom this past year. He lost. He didn't win the belt. But this year, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about this, but this is just knowing them and the way that they tell stories in that company. I'm thinking it comes down to them again, and I'm thinking this time Nakamura wins. Then eventually, sometime down the road, you have the rubber match because, you just keep that seed there, let it grow, and then eventually you can do the big, rubber match between Okada and Nakamura. But from what I'm hearing, this is Nakamura's summer. He's going to win the G1. He's going to go on to face AJ Styles at Wrestle Kingdom. And one would assume he's going to win the title. And I don't know what AJ's contract status is with New Japan, but it's just something inside of me says I could definitely see if he was going to make a move, it would happen sometime after Wrestle Kingdom once he loses that belt to Nakamura. But that's all speculation. For right now, AJ is a New Japan guy. He's a Ring of Honor guy. He's anyone else that wants to book him and can afford to pay him. So, but yeah, we've dreamt of this match. I mean, it's the dream match. They have not touched. They've kept those two away from each other. And with Nakamura's popularity, him being as popular as he is right now, not just in Japan, but as you saw in friggin' Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, like he was the most over superstar that night, was he not?
Oh my God, was he ever? I mean, even just at the signings ahead of time, he was the guy with the biggest lineup. But when he came out, everyone went crazy. So
and it translated on. That's one thing that did translate on the tapings. When he comes out, like it's a huge ovation. But I mean, it makes complete sense. What I'm hearing makes complete sense. So again, that's what seems to be going down. AJ and Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom. That's something to be excited about. AJ finally getting a chance to headline the Tokyo Dome.
Good for AJ and good for Nakamura.
Oh yeah, and that should be one hell of a match.
One
hell of a match. So anyways, gonna get this wisdom tooth situation all taken care of, and then it's gonna be all New Japan in July, buddy.
Right on. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so from myself, from Shotgun Shan, thank you for being here with me. We've gone a little bit long in the tooth here, no pun intended, but we're gonna get out. Shotgun Shan, have a wonderful weekend. I will not have a wonderful weekend, but I hope you do. I'll try to find some real nasty looking, bruised up, swollen, bloody pictures to send over. But anyway, from myself, from the Shotgun Man, the Brothers of Production, we want to say peace, love, Wrestling Audio Revolution, and promotional consideration is paid for by the following.